Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. Welcome back to part 5 of getting my Avatar Grove, my cedar forest, ready for spring. In the last video, I finished pruning up the main tree, so all the trees are pruned up, and now today I'll be doing all the finishing touches to the landscape and the trees. I'm going to start today by working on the landscape. This cedar forest is designed to look like the Avatar Grove near Port Renfrew in British Columbia, Canada. In order to get the maximum out of the hill, I want it low at the front and as high as possible at the back to get that nice slope on the terrain. You can see at the moment there's a lot of moss at the front, which kind of makes the front of the planting look high. It's quite high here too, instead of going down to the edge of the pot. So that'll be the first thing I'll fix, is I'll remove all these moss balls, reposition them somewhere else in the planting, and get my terrain to go right down to the lip of the pot. I've got a tray of water here that I can put my moss in to keep it nice and moist. So I'll try removing the moss now. All right, let's see if we can get in here. I don't think the soil is frozen. It is very cool out today. It's below freezing outside, but the greenhouse is warmed up a bit. I think there's something, I think it's still frozen here. I might have to wait a little longer. The surface of the soil isn't freezing, but just down below the moss it is. I'm looking at the main tree and I notice there's a root here that kind of crosses underneath some other roots. It's not radial, so I'm going to try and remove that. So I'll just snip it out of there, and I'll get my tweezers and try and get the... No, it's not coming out too easily from there. There we go. Yeah, they weren't alive roots anyway. They probably would have rotted away eventually, but we'll get them out now. There's that part. That's got those surface roots cleaned up now. None of those funny looking crossing roots there. I'll try removing the moss now, see if it's thawed out a bit. Well, it comes out in a big clump. Yeah, you can see the soil's frozen down here. Well, that's good, it came out nicely. I can see the slope of my terrain now. So I'll put that in the water dish. And I'll clean up all this area. So I want this to slope down to the edge of the pot and just be slightly below the lip here to get the maximum amount of slope possible in the landscape. So I think about there is about as low as I want to go. So it's just kind of down from the lip of the pot a bit. I'll try getting these clumps of moss off now. Oh, they're coming off quite easily. At least that one did. Yeah, a bit of a fallen tree there, deadfall. So that's got the front of this area down nice and low now. I could maybe do a little trimming of the terrain here. Beside the tree here, over in this area, I've got kind of, this is my slope of my hill, and then I've got this big lump of moss here, which kind of makes the tree look like it's sitting in a pocket. So I want to remove that to get this part of the slope the same as the main forest here. So I'm going to remove the moss in this area and remove some of the soil in this area too. And I got a few surface roots from the seedling here. I may have to replant that or prune away some of the higher roots and use some of the lower ones if possible. The seedling's in a terrible position. It's directly behind this tree when you're looking at this forest. So I'll try and get it out without damaging the root system too much. Maybe we can plant it behind. Should be like a distant tree. It's got a deep taproot that goes straight down, but it's got a lot of nice surface roots, so even if I break the taproot, it should be okay. There we go. Got most of the roots out. I would say 90% of them. So I'll put that in the tray of water, put some moss on top of the roots, and that should be fine until I go to plant it. Now I can work on this terrain again. I've got a surface root here that's quite high. I think I'll have to remove that. So I will. I'll just cut that one away. Like that. And then I can get the rest of the root out. Just pull it out. These roots go everywhere in these Thuja trees. There's another wild surface root here I've got to remove. Like that. Just trimming them away. Like that. So now I can try and get my terrain again a little steeper here. Now I have to decide what I'm going to do up here. I've got my slope of the hillside here, and then I got this big kind of lump here. I've got a fallen tree that's rolled down the hill and sort of jammed against the main tree here, which happens a lot in these old growth forests on hillsides. Well, I've got this big giant mat of moss up here, and I don't want it that mossy in here. So I'm going to pull some of this off. Now I can kind of see what's going on here more. So there's quite a mound there. But I think I want that to be reduced away from this tree here. So I'm going to do some carving like this. I do want some changes to the terrain, so I don't want it flat either. But I want to give this main tree lots of room around it. I'm looking at the forest from the front, and I need to take more soil away in this area. And I'm not sure about that hill there. If I just want the one slope. I'll take away some more of this moss up here too, so I can see what's going on with the terrain up above. So I'll get rid of some of that. I am going to take away this bit of this hill here. Try and get a little flatter from the front. I can always add hills back in, but I want to get the basic slope of the hill. And this is a good time to do all this work. Early spring. None of these roots are active, and the trees will recover really well from all this. You know, any root pruning I do, just pruning away some of these surface roots, it won't be a problem for them at all. Much more like a mountainside or a hillside. Okay, I'll do a little root pruning. Just trimming away all these root hairs that are sticking up out of the soil. I don't mind them if they kind of follow along the contour of the soil. That would look quite nice eventually. And I'm sure that'll happen. You know, in the future, this forest, as it gets established, you'll get a lot of surface roots crawling across the surface of the soil. And it'll help it look really miniature. So one of the things I didn't like about the forest was the terrain of the hill matches the terrain of the trees, which would naturally happen. I mean, the trees in an old growth forest tend to grow to a certain height and no higher. And eventually I'll have these smaller trees, they'll grow up higher. So it'll be, you know, less of a sharp triangle and more of a rounded triangle up top. But I don't want my terrain to be a triangle. I don't like that look. I think I need more of a wall or a hill over here, so it's steeper. So right now the only steep part is right at the front here. So I want it to kind of maybe continue over here. I think I talked about adding a hill here and maybe steeper on this side also. So I will try and do that. I think I'll start by building up the hill on this side first. And I kind of had a pathway that came from around here, around the main tree, and up through here. So I might leave a bit of a valley in here, or a ravine, and build this section up here. So I'm going to remove this rock that's up here, and any of my dead trees that have fallen down, like deadfall, I'll put those, collect them, and I'll rearrange those in the end. Now on a cedar, if I were to build up a hill around the base of this tree, it would eventually send roots out of the trunk, and you'd get, you know, a nice root system higher up on the tree. So all this virus that's spreading around the world, it will definitely affect the bonsai season. I don't expect there to be any spring shows this year. I don't think we're kind of on a we're supposed to minimize public contact, stay in our homes, and kind of keep it under control. So yeah, I don't expect any spring shows this year. I was hoping to put my larch forest in the Toronto show for spring, but I doubt it'll happen. I think everything will be canceled. But we'll see. I mean, it is possible, but I think in order to build up that hill properly and straighten out some of the trees and move things about, I'll have to let the landscape thaw. It's just frozen, you know, quite deep down in the soil. So it's going to get quite warm today, and it's in the greenhouse, and I can close the door of the greenhouse now. The big chunk of ice that was on the ground is melted. So I'll come back, and hopefully everything will be thawed out and I can start rearranging things. I generally use sand in my landscapes for my pathways and kind of creating areas that don't have moss. And I'm always looking around for different materials that would look better than sand. And Ross from the Toronto Club gave me a package of ground walnut shells. And walnut shells are very slow to decompose. The only trouble with them is it has juglone and tannic acid in the shells. So if I were to use this, it might kill the moss, and it might, I don't know if it would kill the trees, but I don't think it would be good for the trees. Cedars are one of the trees that can grow underneath a walnut tree, so they may not be as affected as much as, say, a maple tree or something like that. I'm going to boil the shells in water, and hopefully that'll get a lot of that nasty stuff out of the shells, and then I'll try it in my landscape and see how it works. Here's a look at my brew. I've been boiling it for, I don't know, probably 15 minutes, and you can see how it's changed the water to kind of a tea color. It smells quite good, actually. And then down here is the actual shells. So I'm going to let it settle this, and then I'm going to pour the water off and let the shells dry out again. So there's how dark it is. So I'll let that settle, and the heat from this pot will help heat the greenhouse up. So I'll just leave it like this, and we'll wait. I've always been a fan of brass pots, and a couple of years ago I got this brass pot with the dragons on it, and it's just starting to get that nice patina on it that as the brass oxidizes, it changes a nice color. And so I'll drill some drainage holes in that, and I'll be using that as a bonsai pot in the future. I've also got this brass, I don't know what it is, a soap dish or something. That's starting to get some nice patina on it, so that'll look good in the future. And yesterday I got this big brass pot. A bit of ice in the bottom. Yeah, a big brass pot. It's made in China, and you can see the nice, what color it'll turn on the inside there. The whole outside will turn that nice greeny, almost like a coppery color. So I'm really excited about that. I think, you know, if I get a nice sort of Chinese style bonsai tree, this one's got a dragon on it too, I can plant it in this pot and it'll look really awesome, I hope. I've let the pot settle, so I'm going to try pouring off some of the water. And I'm just going to pour it right on the bench here. It'll drain away. Here I go. That's working well. You can see the walnut shells in there. Okay, so now I'll spread it out on a tray and I'll let that all dry. There's a close-up look at the walnut shells. You can see they're quite fine. They should look good on the floor of the forest. Alright, I'll take them outside and we'll put them on the tray to dry in the sun. Alright, here I go. It's warming up nicely out here, so it should dry fairly quickly. Just spread it around on a thin layer. It's kind of looking like the surface of Mars when it's wet. It's kind of got a reddish color to it. Or brown sugar almost. We'll see what color it is when it dries. The sun's gone behind the white pine up here. So it'll take another half an hour or so before it clears the white pine and I get sun back in the greenhouse. I was hoping to get the rock that Tom sent me 3D scanned this week at our library, but the library's closed down because of the virus, and it'll be closed for several weeks, so I'll have to wait until things settle down till I get the rock 3D scanned. I've got a tree in the forest that I don't like the position of it, and it's this one right out front here, if you can see it. It's almost directly in line with the one behind it and the one behind that. So I think I'll move this tree further in the back somewhere, and I think it'll look much better. The forest is back in the sunshine again, so the first tree I'll try and remove is this one out front. I just don't like the location of that. So I'll clear away all the, there's some deadfall here that I'll clear away, and we'll use that again. And I think most of the moss is cleared away. I'll clear away a little more, and then I can dig around. This also doesn't have a very good slope in this area. It's a little heavy at the bottom here, so I'll take away some of this soil. Now let's wiggle the tree. I think it'll come out quite easily. It wiggles. I think if I scrape away some of the soil here, I'll start to expose the roots. Once a cedar or a Thuja tree has grown in bonsai soil for a while, it gets a really fine fibrous root system, and you know, it becomes very difficult to kill because you have so many roots. So even if I sever some of the roots when I'm removing this tree, it is very unlikely it'll kill the tree because it'll have such a good root system. So it's almost loose now. I'll try pulling it out. It's coming. There we go. Just a little more on this side there. So this, you can see it's got a good root system with it. No problems replanting that. You can see how bizarre the root system is too. This tree is very twisty. So I think that'll look perfect in the back of the planting. I've got a pot of ice water. You can see there's some ice floating in it from the rain barrel, and I'll try and fit this tree in here. Maybe it's a little big. It'll fit there. So I'll keep that in the water until I'm ready to plant it. Now I'll fix up my landscape at the front here, and I'm trying to get that steep slope on it. So I'll have to build up soil in the back and keep the soil kind of to a minimum at the front here. There's good bonsai soil in here. It's kind of also a top dressing of soil that's left over from the moss that's good and free draining. It's fine, but it's very free draining. Okay, so that's got that cleaned up nicely. So I want to continue that slope up here. So I've got a couple of trees that might be in the way. I'll have to see what we'll do with those. As I'm rotating the tree around, you can see the steepness of the hill. Looking much better. I'm looking at the slope of the hill, and it's quite steep here. And less steep over here. So I think I'm going to have to remove more soil from the front here. Get it a little steeper in this area. I want that slope fairly consistent. Now I'm taking away some soil at the front here, and I may be able to raise the entire planting up a bit. Let's see how steep it is now here. Looks much better. At the front of the forest, I'm about this far below the lip of the pot, and I should be more like this far. So to fix that, I would have to raise the entire forest in the pot. So I'd have to lift the forest out as one unit, put a layer of bonsai soil on the bottom of the pot, and then put the forest back on top. That would get my level correct at the front of the pot, and it also would raise the height of the hill at the back of the pot. So it would be good in every situation. So I'm going to try and do that. I'll have to mix up a batch of bonsai soil to put that layer on the bottom of the pot. So here I go. For my soil, I'll be using half perlite and half turfus. Sifting it to get all the dust and fine particles out and leaves. The next step is to add the perlite. Hold my breath and then sift it. I'm mixing the soil up now. I use a 50-50 ratio of perlite and turfus. It works really well. My next step will be to try and lift the entire forest out of the pot. And maybe, if I keep my fingers crossed, having the soil kind of frozen might hold it all together. I don't know if the roots are, intertwined enough that it'll come out as one piece or not, but I guess there's only one way to find out. So here I go. All right, so there's not a lot of space in the greenhouse for the camera, so you may be seeing a lot of my back, but I'm going to try and lift the forest out now. And I don't think it'll be easy. The main tree seems to have a good root system. It's kind of working. If I had another set of hands to lift the other side, but I'll see what I can do here. Okay, I'm getting it up. There we go. I did it. So now I can add that layer of soil in the bottom of the pot and raise the whole forest up a bit. So that was good. It came out in one piece. I think it was more the roots than the soil mass being frozen, but whatever, I'm happy it came out in one piece. I'll add my soil layer to the bottom of the pot. So I want it about this much higher, so that's how much soil I'll put in the bottom. So you just kind of shake it out. Try that much. I'll just spread it around. Wow, this pot uses a lot of soil, a lot of surface area. I think I need more soil than that even. So here I go with more soil. That should do it. Level that off. Now I may make it a little higher at the back, just to get that hill a little higher. It might make the trees tilting forward just a little bit, but not much. I'm just going to put a very slight taper. Here's a look at that new layer of soil on the bottom of the pot. So it's just a little higher at the back than it is at the front of the pot. And next, I'll lift the giant cedar forest back into the pot. All right, here I go. I put the pot on the same orientation as the forest, so it should be just a matter of lifting it in. Here I go. Get my hand underneath it. And up it goes and in. Just like that. You can see some of the roots that were circling the pot here. They'll be corrected. Okay, so it's not settled into the pot yet, but it's in there. You can see some of the soil broke away at the front there. I'll pack that back up with soil. Get this forest settled down on top of that new layer of soil on the pot. Definitely raised it. The tree still looks good and vertical. No problems there. All right. I'll get the forest back on the turntable, then we can check it out from all angles. All right. Let's get the turntable here and lift the pot up. Okay, that's looking good there. Spin it around. You can see the gap at the back here, how much it's been raised out of the pot. Now, I'm not sure it's 100% settled down yet. It's pretty close though. Sticking up a bit high at the side here. It wasn't quite in. Okay, that seems to be settled down really nicely in the pot. Everything feels good and solid. All right, I think I'll do my root pruning, getting all these, circling roots trimmed off. The roots look really healthy. I think these trees are going to grow really well this year. I think keeping this in the basement over winter just was fantastic for it. Not too hot, not too cold. And there's some more roots up front here I need to trim. I may have to pack some soil in around here. You can see how there's a bit of a gap in there. Big hole here, there's some soil broke away. So we'll get this fixed up. Well, hopefully after all this work, the hill will look steeper. That's what I'm trying to achieve here. All right, let's start grading this hill now. It's kind of got a bump here. I want to increase the steepness in this area. So I'll get out my sculpting tool and just kind of shape a bit more away of the hill. Getting it nice and kind of flat in this area. I've been in some ravines that are steep like this, and they're usually on a slope that's kind of dangerous to walk down. You have to be careful. And that's kind of the look I want in this, is something that looks like you need a pathway to kind of walk around in it. Too steep to traverse normally without any kind of, stepping stones or anything. I want it to look kind of dangerous. And that's probably why these old growth trees survived, is they're on a hill like this and they're just too hard to log. So I'm pretty sure that's the only reason the Avatar Grove is in existence. This is just too difficult to get into log, unfortunately. But no, fortunately. Unfortunately, that's the only reason it survived. No one could log it. It's not because of the beauty of it or anything. Okay, so this is looking good. This is a little rounded here. I'm going to have to take all my stones out and redo this terrain. It's not steep enough in that area. So I'll do that. These were just stones to kind of give the impression of a bit of a pathway there. And, I might change my mind and not even use them. I don't know. So I'm just carving this away to keep this slope nice and steep here. Forests like this are a bit of an evolution. You know, I had that image in mind when I first planted this forest, but sometimes, you know, you're just not able to achieve it. You have to do it slowly in stages. You can't do everything at once. So hopefully today, you know, it'll take another step forward towards that look of an old growth forest on a hill. Because, you know, these slopes, it takes a while for the roots to grow in and hold it all together. When you first do it, it might just all crumble down. I think I'm going to give this whole planting a watering, just to get that new soil wet and kind of wash away some of the roots here and see exactly what's going on. All right, here I go with the water. This is cold water from the rain barrel. I had a lot of ice in it, but I managed to get a full watering can out. All right, I'll give this another soaking. Starting at the top of the hill, where it all tends to run down. Well, that's soaking in better now. I'll spin that around. We'll do some around the side here. That's the back. I'm filling that gap in at the back here with soil now, just kind of working it in. Wasn't a big gap, just a little bit of a one. So that's got this back filled in now. Let's go back to the front of the forest and have a look at it. I'm standing back having a look at the forest, and I sure like that, you know, steepening up of the front hill. I think that looks really good. So it's still kind of a triangular shape, the profile, so that's what I'll be working on next. I don't know if I can do a whole lot on the left side here. It is fairly steep already, that slope, but I think I can make it a little better. But I can definitely do a lot on this side because it's a gradual slope there. So I wanted to build up that section right here. So I will do that. And to do that, I think what I'll do is I'll try and cut out kind of a circular patch with the tree and the roots and everything, lift it up, put my new soil underneath and kind of blend it in. So just kind of raising one section of the forest. I'll try it. I think this tree is okay. It's far enough forward that I can continue the slope back. So it's really only these two trees here. And this one's not bad. I can just build the slope up in front of it, but this one will definitely have to be raised up. So I'll try and do that. I'm going to come in and I'm going to cut around the tree, kind of halfway between these two trees. I'm not so sure. In this area I can. I'm digging in like that and cutting through some fine roots. But if I get to some tough ones, I may have to go in with the pruners or something. Some more tougher roots there, but we're getting there. And back around to almost where I started. Okay, so I've loosened that up a lot. So now I'll try and get that section out. Oh, I don't know. I may have to. This is almost like, you know, a Yamadori dig, trying to get this tree out, getting as many roots as I can, getting underneath the root mass. All right, I'll get out my root rake. It just didn't work trying to pull it out. I'll save my moss. The tree has a nice radial root system. You can see it here. So I should be able to get that out and replant it with no problems. So I'll keep working away at it. Wow, yeah, there's more roots down below. And I think I may have to cut some of them because they're just so big. I finally got the tree out, and it's got a really good root system. I'll do a little root pruning before I replant it. But now I'm going to build up that section of the hill at the back here. So I'll get some new bonsai soil and wet it and kind of build up clumps. And then I'll cover it with moss and plant the tree. I'm going to put the soil in this brass pot and add water to it. So here I go with the water. And hopefully it'll stick together. I'll kind of grab a clump of it like that and add it to the top of the hill. Like that. So I'll keep adding this wet soil to the hill. Now I'll have to plant the tree eventually, so I'll have to leave room, enough depth to get the tree planted. I wanted sort of a kind of a valley through here, or a pathway. So here's a look at the planting now. You can see it's getting very steep, and at the moment it looks very heavy. And I think that's because there's so much soil exposed that it doesn't have the moss on it. The more I build the soil up on the top, the smaller the pot looks. But I think it's looking good. I'm going to plant the tree on this side now, and then I'll build up the soil some more around the roots of the tree. So I'll do a little root pruning. Here's a look at the roots. Now you notice that, the root plane is down here, and I've got two roots that have grown up top in the trunk. So we'll get rid of those. They're too high in the root plane. I've got another one that's too high here. I'll get rid of that. And another one here. Now this one is getting closer to the root plane, but I think it still sticks up too high, so I'm going to get rid of that one too. Like that. So that keeps most of my roots down on one root plane. There's one here that's maybe a little high, but it's not bad. You can see it's almost in the root plane. I think I'll leave that one for now. So I think that's good. I'll just give a quick trim around the edges of the root mass, and we'll get rid of some of the ones on the bottom. And that's leaving a good healthy root system, so the tree will have no trouble recovering. Next, I'll pick the front of the tree, and that'll be where it looks the straightest. I think right there. Maybe there. I don't know. It's kind of leans forward and then goes vertical. This way it leans back, it goes vertical. Yeah, I think I'll use this as the front. So this tree will go back in the planting somewhere back here. Well, looks quite good back there. Now if I could move it over a bit, I think it would look better. So it's not directly behind this one. That's better. It could come even a little closer. I think there. Yeah, I like that. That's a good position for it. So I'll get some more soil and we'll build up the hill around the root system here. I'll just give those roots a quick combing. Make sure they're nice and radial. Now I'll get some more wet soil and build it up around the root base here. And now that'll all have to be worked in around the roots. Getting rid of all those air gaps. Working the soil into the root system until the tree becomes stable. It's still a little A little loose there. Get some more soil up around here. So that tree's firming up nicely. Got all that soil worked in. I'll give that soil some water. And now I can build up some moss around that new soil. I've got that other tree that I took out from the front, and I'll put that in behind. There's kind of a space between these two trees that I can plant that one. So I'll do that now. So here's my other tree, and you can see it has a really bad root system. What I've been doing with the other trees at the back is having the root system go into the hill and then have the trees almost at the edge of the pot. So it gives a good feeling of depth in the forest, that the trees are as far back in the planting as possible. So I may have to keep this root system and kind of bury it in the hill a bit. Something like that. If the part of the root system that was at the base of the tree was just a little stronger, I might be tempted to cut off that other part. I wonder if I should. See, I'm wondering if this part of the root system's strong enough I could cut this off. I'll try it. And, you know, if worst comes to worst, I'll find another seedling to go in its place. So I'll come in here and cut it at an angle. Like that. And there it goes. So now the root system's fairly compact. I'll have to get rid of that one sticking up. I think that's enough for it to survive. I don't think it'll be a problem. I'll place the tree in from the front just to get an idea of where I want it. So I'm thinking, I don't know. I'm thinking, I don't know, it's quite a twisty trunk on it. I'll put it here. It kind of straightens the tree out. My apex isn't ideal here, but I think it'll work. I'll put the tree here, and I can work the roots in, getting them radial and flat. That's looking good. And then I can build my soil up here in this part of the hill. All right, I'll get that soil surrounding that tree. You can add peat to this wet soil if you want to make more of a muck. But I find the wet bonsai soil sticks pretty good. And once you cover it with a layer of moss, and it tends to hold quite well. And you don't have a, you know, it's a good free draining mix that works well. Grows your root system. Whereas the muck is, you know, maybe restricts the roots a little. I think that's looking good. I'm going to try adding some moss now. This will hold all the bonsai soil in place. Those bushes that were out front are going to the top of the hill, and that'll make the top of the hill look even taller. Building up some walls here of moss. I'm going to come out and have a look at this, see what it's looking like. I'm having a look at the front view now. Yeah, that definitely takes out that, you know, triangular shape. Makes it a little more square in the middle section here. Yeah, I like that much better. This edge drops off quite quickly here. Kind of matches the other side. I need to put a bump on this side still. It's a little even. I may have to go collect some more moss. It seems like I don't have enough. So I'll see if I can find some. Any moss I can find is all frozen, so I'll have to steal some off the surface of this maple tree. It's not a bad looking moss. All right, let's get some on around the back here. I'll pick out these pine needles, which have fallen off that white pine in fall. And then I can fit this patch around this tree at the back here, there, and here. And I think that pretty well has all the bonsai soil covered up with moss. Make sure that moss is pressed in place, and then I'll give it a good watering and press it down again. Make sure it has good contact with the soil. Otherwise, if it's not contacting the soil, it dries out too quickly and it kind of peels off. So I'll rotate back to the front and give the moss a good watering, like that. Okay, I think we need some moss up front too. It's looking pretty bare in this area. All right, I've got some other moss I can put in place here. And I think somewhere up here would look good. I don't want it covering the roots of the main tree there, but I do want, you know, to distinguish the moss from the pathways, or have that contrast. So I don't want it close to the roots, so I'll take it off around the root base here, just peeling it back. And I'll put some up here. That's looking better already. Now I will have to pick away all this perlite that I've left everywhere. So maybe I'll do that now. I'll give it a bit of a cleanup. I'll just pick out the perlite with the tweezers. Put it back in my soil bin. The walnut shells are drying in the sun still. They're almost dry. I'm hoping by the time I'm done this, I can try my pathway of walnut shells and see how they look. It's an experiment. If it doesn't work, I'll go back to sand. I'm not sure, you know, if you water it, if they just all float away. The sand seems to work well. Let's head out now and have a look at the walnut shells. They're just over in the sun here. Oh, they're drying quite well. I just keep kind of spreading them out. I was looking at the larch forest and the buds are swelling really nicely in all the branches. I was having a look at them the other day. I can see all the dormant buds back here, and I can see all the major buds swelling. So I could safely prune the larch forest anytime now. I'd be pruning back to live buds. So that'll be coming up. While the walnut shells are drying, I'll work on the left-hand side of the landscape so it's not an even slope, so it's kind of broken up a bit. So I'll do that now. I think the contour isn't too bad. I think all I need to do, you can't really see the base of this big thick tree back here. So I think I just need to prune my moss a bit and do a bit of sculpting in this area. Maybe make a flat spot here. I think that'll do quite nicely. I'll try it anyway. What I'll do in this area is I'll lift this flap of moss up. I'll kind of create a break line in the moss and kind of peel it back like that, so I can see the base of this tree back here. And then I'll break away some of that soil. I'll just tumble down the front here. And I hope you can see all this, but I'm just clearing away some of the moss at the base of this tree here. A little more raking, like that. And then I can put the moss back. I'll peel it back in place. And hopefully I've kind of got a step in my terrain now, so it doesn't look quite so straight and boring. And this would be a good place to kind of have a path here too. This flat spot, you kind of climb down around the front of the tree and back up through here. So I'll keep that in mind. I might do that. I'm looking at this end of the landscape and I think it needs some rocks here to kind of make a bit of a cliff face there. So I'll try that. I'll get some rocks out and try them in this hill here. So I've got this really nice rock and I'm trying to see. It looks pretty good from that view. I'll try it in that cliff face there. So I want this horizontal. So it's pretty close to a good position. Maybe right in like that. That looks good, I think. I like that. Yeah. Looks good. I may need a rock up here. See if I have a good one. I can't find any more suitable rocks to go up here. So I'll try putting some moss on this face. See how it looks. I need some right here. Clump there. And then I think I want some over here like this. There's something missing from the front here. I think I need moss down here too. Or rocks or something. I'm going to try some deadfall. Maybe to break that area up. That looks okay. Maybe a bit more here and there. Kind of like it's rolled down the hill. Kind of collecting at the bottom here. Bit of deadfall with some moss on it. That might look good down here too. Yeah. Yeah, that looks good. It kind of breaks up that area a bit. The only rocks I have are little pebbles from the driveway. And I had kind of a rock path here, and it was a little too defined. I'm going to try putting some in here that's maybe a little more subtle, so it doesn't look too much like steps, but more like kind of a rock face there. I think I have to move this clump of moss over. It's kind of blocking my... It'd look better if it was wider here. So I'll put this clump of moss maybe down low here again. Yeah, it looks fine down there. Yeah, so this will be where the walnut shells go. And maybe I'll give those a try now. Oh, it's looking good. Breaks it up a bit, just having a few rocks. Makes it all look a little more real. Okay, I think it's time to get those walnut shells. All right, I've got my walnut shells and I'll spoon them on. And here I go. I'm going to put some around various places just as a kind of a different ground cover. I think it'll help give everything a natural look. I have no idea what this will do when I water it, if they'll just maybe run everywhere. It's something I'll just have to try. I like the color of it. It's looking really nice. Some at the side here. Okay, and I think I'll put a bit of sand too with it. All right, here I go with the sand, and this is just to add, you know, another element of ground cover texture. Of ground texture, I guess. Now, I'm going to try watering it, and this will be where we find out, you know, the walnut shells look good. I could put them on just before a show or something, but I'm afraid when I go to water this, they're all just gonna float and wash away, so I'll see. There's a shot of the forest with the crushed walnut shells applied. It looks really nice. I really like it. It looks really miniature. I'm going to water it now. This may ruin everything. Here I go. There was some washing away, but it wasn't as bad as I thought it might be. Now, I don't know if that's because they're a little damp, but yeah, I think might be something to apply before a show, just to kind of define your pathways and give that kind of natural ground color. Especially in fall, I think it would look really good as a kind of an autumn ground cover. There's one more thing I have to do. I had that seedling that I took out from the front here, so I have to plant that around the back, so I'll do that now. I've got my little seedling, and I'm just going to try and visualize a place where to plant it. I think in between these two ones back here. So I'll rotate it around somewhere back here. I think that'll look quite good. And so I'll put a hole in my moss here, like that, and then I can put the seedling in. And then I'll press all this back in place, keeping my little seedling there vertical. And hopefully that'll root in there and grow really nicely. Time will tell anyway. If it doesn't, I have lots of little seedlings to plant back in this back row here, just to create that back wall of small trees to look like they're in the distance when viewed from the front here. I'm going to add a few rocks at the bottom of the hill here, just to look like they've tumbled down the hill and kind of collected at the bottom over the years. So I've got this pea gravel, and I'm going to pick the lighter colored stones and just kind of place all the similar colored stones at the bottom here. Kind of like that, and just kind of spread them out a bit. Yeah, it looks fine. I'll just put a few over this side also. The light is fading, so I'll go in now and have a look at the landscape, and that'll be it for this series. That's all the work I'll be doing on my Cedar Avatar Grove for today. The work will never finish. I'll always be modifying this and improving it, or trying to improve it, over the years to come. I'm Nigel Saunders. Thanks for joining me today in the Bonsai Zone.